The air in Nanjing on that cold December day in 1937 did not just carry the scent of smoke and gunpowder. It was thick with a silence that preceded a scream, a terrifying stillness that descended upon the ancient capital as the last vestiges of organized Chinese resistance crumbled. Imagine the sound of a city holding its breath, the frantic, desperate scramble of hundreds of thousands of civilians who knew, with a chilling certainty, that the fall of the city to the Imperial Japanese Army would not be a mere military defeat, but the beginning of an unimaginable, systematic horror that would stain the pages of history forever. The gates were breached, the defense dissolved, and what followed was not war, but a 6-week campaign of calculated brutality that began the moment the first Japanese soldiers stepped across the city walls. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Also, we're coming soon to Substack. To understand the tragedy of Nanjing, we must first look back to the summer of 1937. The Second Sino-Japanese War had erupted in full force, and the Japanese military machine, fresh from its brutal victory in the Battle of Shanghai, was marching relentlessly westward. The capture of Shanghai, a major international port, had been a bloody 3-month affair, but it had only whetted the appetite of the Japanese high command for a decisive blow against the Chinese government. Nanjing, the capital of the Republic of China, was the symbolic and political heart of the nation. Its capture was seen by the Japanese as the final necessary step to force a Chinese surrender. The Chinese government, led by Chiang Kai-shek, made the fateful decision to move the capital inland to Chongqing, but not before ordering a defense of Nanjing, a defense that was tragically ill-prepared and ultimately doomed. The retreat from Shanghai was chaotic, with Chinese troops demoralized and disorganized. As they streamed back toward Nanjing, they were pursued by a relentless Japanese force, commanded by Prince Asaka Yasuhiko, an uncle of Emperor Hirohito. The Japanese advance was marked by a scorched earth policy, and the soldiers were already hardened by months of intense combat, their discipline fraying under the strain of a long, brutal campaign. By early December, the Japanese forces had encircled Nanjing. The city's defense, led by General Tang Shengzi, was a mix of hastily assembled divisions and demoralized remnants. Tang had promised to defend the city to the death, but his orders were contradictory, and the planned defense perimeter was porous. The final assault began on December 9th, and within days, the situation became untenable. On the night of December 12th, General Tang ordered a general retreat, an order that was executed with catastrophic disorganization. Bridges were destroyed prematurely, leaving thousands of Chinese soldiers trapped on the south bank of the Yangtze River. These disarmed, desperate men, many of whom had simply discarded their uniforms, became the first major victims of the massacre. The Japanese Imperial Army officially entered Nanjing on December 13, 1937. The initial wave of violence was directed at the estimated 90,000 disarmed Chinese soldiers who were rounded up. Instead of being treated as prisoners of war, they were marched to the banks of the Yangtze, tied together and executed by machine gun fire, bayoneting, or being used for live target practice. The river ran red with their blood. But the horror did not stop with the soldiers. The violence immediately turned on the civilian population. Japanese soldiers, given free rein by their commanders, began a campaign of mass murder, looting, and arson that lasted for 6 weeks. The streets of Nanjing became a hunting ground. The most infamous aspect of the atrocity was the systematic mass rape. Tens of thousands of women, from young girls to the elderly, were brutally assaulted. The acts were often committed in public, sometimes in front of family members, and were frequently followed by the victim's murder. The sheer scale and depravity of the sexual violence led to the event being tragically dubbed the Rape of Nanking. Civilians were murdered in countless ways. Men were often executed on suspicion of being former soldiers, simply for having calloused hands or a military haircut. Mass killings took place in various locations, including the ditches outside the city walls and the grounds of the former Ministry of Communications. The Japanese troops often used these executions as a form of sport or training, with bayoneting contests being recorded in the diaries of some soldiers. Amidst the chaos and terror, a small beacon of humanity emerged, the Nanjing International Safety Zone, established by a group of foreign residents, including German businessman John Rupp,
The zone offered sanctuary to an estimated 200,000 Chinese civilians.
Rabe, a Nazi party member, used his political connections and his sheer moral courage to stand up to the Japanese military, earning him the title of the Oscar Schindler of Nanjing. The foreign residents, including doctors, missionaries, and professors, risked their lives daily to document the atrocities and protect the refugees. Their diaries, photographs, and letters, smuggled out of the city, provided the world with the first undeniable evidence of the scale of the massacre, evidence that would later be crucial in war crimes tribunals. The exact number of victims remains a point of historical contention, but the consensus among most historians and the findings of the International Military Tribunal for the Far East place the death toll at well over 200,000, with some estimates reaching 300,000. This was not a battle. It was a massacre of unprecedented scale against a defenseless population, a dark chapter that began with the fall of a city and the collapse of all moral restraint. The events of December 1937 and January 1938 in Nanjing stand as a stark, horrifying testament to the depths of human cruelty and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked military power. It is a history that must be remembered, not to dwell in the past, but to ensure such a crime against humanity is never repeated. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.